Namaste and welcome to Detours with me, Anuradha Goyal, where I talk to some very interesting personalities about journeys of all kinds. Today we have with us Ashish Kaulji, who is the author of a beautiful book on Didda, the warrior queen of Kashmir. Now, I have been reading about Kashmir and I realized that Didda ruled in Kashmir at the time, which is my favorite time for India. It is the time when probably India was at its best. The invasions were yet to start, and our architecture, our military, our trade was probably at its peak. But I don't know much about Kashmir, so I took this opportunity to invite Ashish ji on Detours and ask him a lot of questions on Kashmir. So Ashish ji, welcome to Detours.
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद. Thank you so much for having me on the show. I've heard a lot about your show. Thank you very much. It is such a privilege to be speaking to you today, especially about the topic that is so that is of so much interest to you and to me as well.
Yes, our generation has heard of Kashmir only in terms of the conflicts that we have seen. We've heard a bit about the touristy part of it, thanks to Bollywood, a lot of 60s, 70s films that were shot there. But we hardly know about the history of Kashmir. I read a lot, so I have read a little bit about Kashmir Shaivism and Sharda Peeth and Abhinav Gupta, but not much, nothing that we know about. So I'm going to ask you to start by telling us about the 10th century Kashmir and its landscape. How did it look like? What are the landscape features that defined Kashmir? And of course the different kingdoms. We know there was Kashmir, but it must have been surrounded by other kingdoms. So what kingdoms surrounded it? So take us physically to that 10th century Kashmir.
Anuradhaji, the point that you mentioned is so pertinent that Kashmir, the way we understand Kashmir, is only from a touristic destination, which Kashmir was never intended to be. So, not just the political landscape, I'll take you back in time and how the gravest of injustice has been done to Kashmir in terms of diluting its history, its political landscape, its socio-cultural importance in the right from the Vedic times, even pre-Vedic times to the modern times. Even its importance when we talk about the undivided India, Kashmir played the most important part, and it is such a travesty of history that something which should be a beacon of excellence in spiritualism, beacon of excellence in knowledge, in learning, in politics, and in tremendous, incredible contributions that people of Kashmir, especially the women of Kashmir, who have made to the entire world, not just India. That whole part has been eradicated by vested historians over a period of time. Now,
Mhm.
10th century is, the history of Kashmir. There is almost 10,000 years of continuous history. I mean, do people even know that the history of Kashmir is the only surviving piece of history that has continuously been written, and it starts from the time period when pharaohs in Egypt had not even decided to make pyramids.
Mhm.
So we have a continuous history, and people are completely in oblivion. They have no idea of the history of Kashmir. Now, coming back to the 10th century, now imagine if you see 10th century not just in India, for some reason, for some magical reason, it was a moment that redefined the whole world, not
Yes.
just Asia and undivided India. And 10th century, from an Indian context, we have to understand that in the 10th century, India was not the way we understand India today. We are talking about undivided India. We are talking about kingdoms that even touched the borders of Iran, Iraq. On the other hand, Afghanistan was a part of our country, Pakistan, and everything else was a part of this country. And in this context, if you see the 10th century, Middle East was at war with the European nations. Jerusalem, there was a battle for Jerusalem. Crusades were happening. Islam had established itself, and it was fighting the Christian dominance in the plains of Central Asia, and the battles of Jerusalem were happening. Kashmir was the borderline state. It was the entry to so-called India at that point of time, the undivided India, and the kingdoms that ruled Kashmir that time. They were some of the greatest kingdoms in the whole world. From an
Right.
Indian context, the Karkota dynasty
Mm-hmm.
that ruled a major part of India. Lalitaditya was among the greatest rulers that ruled he had Kashmir as a part of his kingdom. Now, in the 10th century, certain, after Lalitadit's death, we are talking about roughly 200 to 250 years, 300 years post his death. Certain kingdoms have had broken away at that point of time,
Mm-hmm.
and it had come down to the rule of Sangram Dev in Kashmir.
Okay.
And and in when we talk about Kashmir, on the left hand side of Kashmir, if you're facing north, on the left hand side of Kashmir was the great and the mighty kingdom of Lohar dynasty. Today's people will not understand Lohar for a simple reason that it is no longer known as Lohar. There is only one small village that it's such a travesty of history. History is such a thing that once a great kingdom which had the mighty capital called Loren. Today, Loren is a very insignificant, small, little village on the Indo-Pak line of control. Very small village. I've recently been there. People will not be even knowing that this is the history of that great place. And those days, Loren was Lohar kingdom was that included the entire West Pakistan. It included Indian and Pakistani Poonch Rajouri. Poonch Rajouri is on the both sides of the border. Then you have today's Punjab, you have today's Haryana. So to give you an impression that how prosperous this nation was in the 10th century, and then it shared its borders with the Kingdom of Kashmir, and right in front was the Central Asian kingdoms, which were ruled by the Shahi dynasty. Now, Shahi dynasty, if in today's context, if people have seen that Oscar-winning film Argo, which won Ben Affleck and both the film and Oscar, it had a slice of that history, which when Ayatollah Khomeini's came and the transition happened from the Shahi kingdom to the Islamic Republic of Iran. So Shahi kingdom was the last Hindu Shahi family that ruled the Central Asian plains. The last and the mighty king was King Bhimsha, who was the father-in-law of the king of Simharaj of Lauren, but they had no relationship with Kashmir on the right hand side. So Kashmir, as I said, was ruled at that time by Sangram Dev. He was in the last of the dynasty, and Sangram Dev is in the history. Various historians have documented his rule as among the cruelest of the rules, and Kashmir was literally brought onto the verge of disintegration.
Mm-hmm.
There was civil Kashmir. The entire political landscape was strife with civil wars. Those were the times when kings did not actually have an army the
Mm-hmm.
way we understand an army today. Those days,
Right.
army, the concept of army was you had a handful of guards who would protect you, and they would protect the fort area.
Right.
And when the king needed an expedition, suppose the king needed to vanquish some other kingdom, they would rally a force that time. And which
They
is
would.
why, in the ancient times, when the armies, after the mission is over, they would actually resort to plunder and looting and whatever
Yes.
they could get. And that was in a manner of speaking, that was their wages. So
Right.
in Kashmir, the stronger armies actually were with Damars. Damars in the sense that today we call them Jagirdars.
Right.
So the lands, the fertile lands, and the army was controlled by Jagirdars. And because the king was unable to provide any meaningful, just governance, so there was Kashmir was facing a civil war. And those were the times when Kashmir, even now, in fact, the interesting part about Kashmir is in the ancient times, Kashmir had faced severe famines, because it has a low water table, it has tremendous, it is a valley, and especially during certain times, it faces flooding. And it is common knowledge that once you have a flooding, you face a period of famine because the soil is rendered infertile. And Kashmir, imagine, today nobody will even imagine that the paradise that we know, Kashmir, full of vegetation, the fruit bowl of India, so much of vegetation, great weather, Switzerland of the east. How can it face famines? But the fact is that Kashmir has faced tremendous famine, and it was just reeling out of the famines around the 10th century. And Sangram Dev was the least, he was not interested in governance at all, and he had unleashed a reign of terror across the valley. So, some of the courtiers, and the other part about Kashmir, the political landscape of Kashmir has been so vibrant that today we associate, what you call palace politics. When you
Right.
talk of palace politics, you probably talk of Delhi, you talk of, Rajasthan, and you talk of those kingdoms who had tremendous palace politics. But the palace politics of Kashmir were far complicated than any kingdom in India. So back in the 10th century, what had happened was, a group of courtiers, they convinced Parvgupt, who was among the other courtiers in Sangram Dev's court, that this is the time that we need a shift of governance in Kashmir. And Parvgupt was a very loyal servant to his, was a very loyal courtier at that time. But then he was caught between what he was actually witnessing. That the kind of terror that the king Sangram Dev had unleashed on the poor people of Kashmir at that time, who had hardly anything to eat, they had no money, they had no food, and the kind of extravagance the king was happening, king was indulging. So therefore, he was caught. So the $1 million question was: will a loyal courtier like Parvgupt indulge in something like a mutiny or not? But eventually, Parvgupt decided, and in those one of those fateful nights, Parvgupt, led by his band of soldiers, they attacked. They sort of took over the entire Kashmir palace, the Srinagar palace, and Sangram Dev. He was actually he was so drunk that he did not even know what was happening. And by the time, it is so interesting, by the time Sangram Dev, he gathered his conscience, he found himself on a boat in Vitasta. Now, Vitasta, today people do not know what Vitasta is. Vitasta is the true name, is the real
Jhelum.
name of
Yeah.
Jhelum River.
Jhelum.
So he found himself on a boat on Vitasta, and he was tied to a chain, and the chain was in turn tied to a very huge boulder, a stone. And he was so, and when he came to his senses, he began arguing with the Parvgupt, how could you do this? And he cursed Parvgupt. But Parvgupt did not respond at all. So he cursed Parvgupt. He said, if you think you will inherit this kingdom in peace, no. You and your son will also, no matter your family will also die an antagonizing death. And when he said that, he was pushed into the Jhelum by Parvgupt. And that was the end of Sangram Dev. He went down to the bottom of Vitasta, and that was the first time that a revolution had occurred in the history of Kashmir. Otherwise, there have been sort of peaceful
Transitions.
transitions, peaceful, or people have fought each other and they have taken over each other. But a mutiny of this order, and a rightly befitting end to the cruel Sangram Dev at the hands of Parvgupt, had happened for the first time.
Right.
And in the morning, that very morning, then Parvgupt was was crowned the new king of Kashmir, and with him, the new dynasty began ruling Kashmir. And the same morning,
Mhm.
his wife gave birth to the heir of the kingdom, which was named as Shemgo. So
Yes.
this is the 10th century Kashmir. And likewise, in
Mhm.
Lohar, what was happening was King Simharaj
Mhm.
gave birth to a beautiful daughter,
Mhm.
and her name was kept as Dida.
Mhm.
So these are
Right.
the two people who were born during the same time frame, with not exactly the same time, about 5 years difference between them, but
Right.
around the same timeline. This is what had happened. And Dida was born, but Dida had a very different destiny. Dida, when she was born, her father King Simharaj and her mother Srilekha, they both tried to kill her. They both tried to throw her into the waters. Unfortunately, she got her basket got entangled with the robes of the king, and somehow the king then did not have the heart to let her go. So he got her back to the palace, but he abandoned the daughter.
Mhm.
And the daughter was Dida, a princess of such a prosperous kingdom. She was
Right.
raised by a maid, and
Right.
the king did so because Dida was born disabled. She had a
Right.
deformed leg. Possibly at that time, I can safely, my research indicates that she was affected by polio at birth. And Kashmir had two diseases at that time. One
Mhm.
was, one was polio. Polio
Mhm.
was quite rampant in Kashmir, and other was typhoid.
Uh-huh.
So most of the deaths in Kashmir would happen because of typhoid
Mhm.
and polio. So we also know that these were the two diseases that were rampant in Kashmir. But then they did not have much of an impact on locals because of the kind of healthy lifestyle and everything else. But we know that some of the important people in Kashmir have at some point of time been affected by these diseases, and it caused their end.
Right.
Would you like at this point of
Yes.
time to? Yeah.
Yes. So Ashish, I agree with you. I spent a couple of years of my life in Naushera, Rajouri, Punch
Yes,
area,
yes, yes.
and I
That's the
had
area.
no inkling of its historical importance till a couple of years back when I read about it. And also, you in your book also mentioned, and otherwise also we know that this was also the time when Abhinav Gupta lived, and he played a role of a mentor or a Rajguru to the kingdoms which would have existed then. And you also mentioned that Kashmir was a great learning center. We of course know that Sharda Peeth, which is the goddess of learning, she has her own peeth is in Kashmir. So tell us a little about the spiritual heritage of Kashmir.
Yes. So, it is another interesting part today, as we began by saying that great disservice has been done to the entire history of Kashmir by our historians, probably either out of ignorance or by mandate, and they sort of kept it as a tourist destination and the kind of mess that Kashmir is in. But to Sanatan Dharma or to Vedic Hinduism,
Mhm.
what Makkah is to Muslims, and what Jerusalem is to Christians, Kashmir is to Sanatan Dharma, Kashmir is to Vedic Sanatan Dharma, and Kashmir is to Vedic India. Kashmir was never meant to be a tourist destination.
Mhm.
Kashmir was the greatest seat of learning.
Mhm.
Kashmir was the greatest seat of spiritual salvation.
Mhm.
Kashmir was the bowl of learning, of excellence. Do you
Mhm.
know, as I said earlier, Kashmir is the only place in the world which has the longest surviving, continuously written history in the whole world. Now, apart from that, the first university, we of course credit Nalanda for that. That is not correct. Why that is not correct? We can. Those are greater debates, but people who understand history very well. The first great seat of learning
Mhm.
was Sharda Vidyapeeth. Now,
Right.
Sharda Vidyapeeth evolved at two levels.
Mhm.
One, there is a spiritual story to Sharda Vidyapeeth, that how Sharda Vidyapeeth came into being, and why only Kashmir? Because Kashmir was essentially known as Satisar. It was entirely the entire area was submerged underwater. Today's reminiscence, like, when you see lakes like Dal Lake, Wular Lake, and all those water bodies, they are what remains of a larger water body that existed, which eventually was drained out of. Those days it was called as Varamul. Now it is known as Baramulla. So the water, the valley is slightly shifted towards Pakistan. So the water drained out from that, and the beautiful land of Kashmir emerged. And we have the history of Kashmir that starts from almost the first king, which was King Neel, who was the elder son of Kashyap Rishi, or in the history is also known as a sage of the Caspian, who came from the Caspian Sea to deliver Kashmir from the deluge that it was in. Now, Sharda Vidyapeeth,
So is Neel Mata Puran has anything to do with it?
Nilmat Puran.
Nilmat Puran.
Yes, Nilmat Puran begins actually from the day that Kashmir was born. When the land emerged, when the water was drained out, so Kashmir basically comprised of two civilizations. One was the civilization that lived on the ridges of Kashmir. So people of Tibet, Ladakh, Gilgit, Baltistan. This comprised of the civilization that surrounded the once great water body. Okay, and they lived there. So during the summer months, during the winter months, they would come down to the valley. So if you see today, you must be knowing that Kashmir has a culture of Darbar move, right? 6 months,
Yes.
The capital goes to, the winter capital is Jammu and the summer capital is Kashmir. So
Right.
this is so interesting. It has been right from the time that Kashmir was born. The people, the civilization that lived in the upper reaches, they would come down in the winter because upper reaches would be completely engulfed with snow. There's nothing to eat. They would come down, and then eventually King Neel, this would bring them, the civilization living in the upper reaches, with the people who came with King Neel and settled down in Kashmir. They were always at loggerheads. So King Neel arrived at a truce that 6 months you will come and we will serve you, otherwise you will not trouble us. So a truce was. So Kashmir continued that culture. If you see the Kashmiri culture, it has certain unique traditions. Like there is a tradition of, which is in Kashmiri, it is called Khetsi Mawas. Mawas, as in the dark night. Now, Khetsi is a word that has sort of evolved from Yaksha. Yaksha Mawas. So basically, in Kashmir, there was a tradition during certain winter months. We would keep food outside. For why we would call them yakshas is, if you see the ancient scriptures, how have yakshas been formed? They have, those little hair, small little hair flowing from their chin, those, almond shaped eyes and all. So those are typical features of the civilizations which are living in the upper reaches, especially alongside Kashmir. So if you see Tibetan people or Ladakhi people, they have those very typical features who can be matched with the yakshas, the yaksha-like features in the scriptures. So we thought that they were yakshas, but the point was that the truce was that we will feed them during the winter months when they will not, then when they would not get food, so they would come down, and the story eventually was formed that when you feed them, they will bring prosperity to you. The concept was, it was a concept of peace, and the story was that
coexisting.
Peaceful coexistence. And in this, Sharda has always existed. Sharda has existed even beyond this time. Beyond this time. As I said, there are two stories to Sharda, or two faces to Sharda. One is the spiritual face of Sharda. Now, which is why it is important to understand the real significance of Sharda. We all know the story of Sagar Manthan, and we know of the things that came out of Sagar Manthan. Amrit was one of them, and we also know the story that how Rahu tried to drink Amrit, and Vishnu slayed him into two, and eventually Vishnu ran away with what happened with the remaining Amrita. Nobody knows. When I say nobody knows, generally people, even some knowledgeable people, do not know what actually happened to the remaining Amrit that was consumed by Devtas and the remaining. So Brahmaji told Vishnu, please go and establish this Kalash, this Amrit Kalash, in the land of Kashmir.
Oh, wow.
And Vishnuji came and he established this at the confluence of Krishna Ganga. So there are two rivers that combine together. That confluence is known as Krishna Ganga. Muslims today in Muzaffarabad or in Pakistan occupied Kashmir, they know of it as Neelam Valley. Okay,
Yes.
and it was established there, and atop that Brahmaji manifested Sharda, the
Hmm. On top of that Kalash.
on top of that Kalash. In time, that grew into a land of spiritual learning. So Kashmiri Pandits were the first ones who became the servants of Ma Sharda, and that is how it grew. Now, it was the goddess of learning. Even
Yes.
up to the 18th century, we have incidents where goddess was seen atop a white swan around that area. Even before, when the Turks and when the Muslim invasion happened, and there was a Muslim commander who the first destruction came when the Muslim commander he placed granite.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, granite, but placed dynamite
Mm-hmm.
inside the temple, and he blew the temple.
Mm-hmm.
This temple had atop the original Sri Yantra was
Mm-hmm.
inscribed on this, and which is about some 300 400 meters away from the what remains of Sharda Ma's temple that is still there. And there is a place called Ganesh Ghati. So you have a huge mountain cliff which has a natural formed Ganeshji's pratima on that. So eventually what happened was Sharda had four gates, and
Mm-hmm.
all the kings and the queens. Do you know even Queen Dida was a
Mm-hmm.
student of Sharda? Kota Rani, she was a student of Sharda. It is also believed, certain court diaries, especially of Gopaditya and others, that people from many parts of the world
Mm-hmm.
came and they learned spirituality from Sharda, and they went and they started their own respective cults. Christianity, it is also believed,
Mm-hmm.
there is an ongoing research that even Jesus Christ had visited Kashmir. This is a very debatable aspect, but they say that there is a part in Bible where for 15 years, 15 20 years, Jesus is entirely missing. We know of Jesus as a teenager, and then he makes a debut in the Bible as a 32-year-old grown-up man. Before those 15 years, nobody knows where he was.
Mm-hmm.
See, there was an established trade route between Central Asia and Indian heartland, which went through Kashmir. So Kashmir
Right.
was a facilitator of trade. So
Right.
silk, spices, and all of that used to come from Central Asia into India through Kashmir. That
Right.
was the trade route
So
that was
that in fact
established there.
brings me to the final and the wrap up question for you.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about the trade that was enabled by Kashmir. What are the things that were traded out or traded in the Kashmir, and how it connected to the trade?
See, trade, when you say trade, as I said earlier, Kashmir was actually not a market. It was never conceived as a market the way we see Kashmir today as a market where people live, they have their needs, people need to do business, they need to consume food. Kashmir, before the Turks and before the Afghans vandalized Kashmir, let's say 800 years and before that, Kashmir was only a center for salvation. Kashmir was not a kingdom which existed for any commercial gains, but Kashmir during Dida's time and even before that and after that, Kashmir has been a facilitator of trade to the greater India. So all whatever you see today, the silk in Kashmir. So Kashmir also has silk today, but that was Kashmir has saffron today. Kashmir is among the third largest producers of saffron in the world. Saffron is produced only in Spain, in some parts here and there, in Kishtwar and in Kashmir. So the saffron from Kashmir is considered to be the best in the world. The fruits of Kashmir is considered to be the best in the world. But all of that has come to Kashmir because of this trade. But Kashmir in itself was not a trade.
Either a producer or a consumer.
Yeah, it was not, because people who lived in Kashmir were basically temple keepers.
Right.
People like us, for example, people like me, my family, like for example, my surname is Kaul. Now,
Mm-hmm.
even if you ask majority of Kashmiris, they would not know. Kauls are supposed to be the highest order Brahmins in the Kashmiri Pandit clan. Kaul Samhita is the treatise, is the scripture which is dedicated to the tantra, the shakti that
Right.
that exists in the world.
Kalachar.
So Yes. So that is how we were the custodians of that knowledge. So that is why the calls. But otherwise, we are the Tatari Brahman.
Right.
But we our job was to upkeep that tradition of tantra. Likewise, all the Kashmiri Pandits,
Hmm.
the natives of Kashmir, their job essentially was to be the servants of various places of historical Vedic worship in Kashmir, which included places like Tulamula, which is also known as Kheer Bhavani, and so many centers, the Amarnath, Sharda Vidyapeeth, essentially was, in a manner of speaking, the biggest employer for Kashmiri Pandits. In a way, they were, employees is not the right word, but for today people to understand that the people of Kashmir, their job or their existence was meant for upkeeping the Vedic traditions, upkeeping the spiritual aspect of Vedic Dharma, and coming back to what we did. And through Sharda was the first university in the world to offer degrees, diplomas, conduct workshops, do seminars. So people from worldwide, people from all over the world, from Europe, even up to people coming in from Europe, from various Central Asian kingdoms, would come and acquire knowledge from Sharda Vidyapeeth. And as I said earlier, they went back to their countries, like Christianity, for example.
And
Though
the biggest
it is
example is Adi Shankaracharya.
Adish, yes, of course, he came, and there are many people, even Hyun Sang and all those guys
Yes,
who
Hyun Sang
visited.
mentions it. Yes.
They came to Kashmir. Ashoka conducted court in Kashmir. Buddhism, it is such an important part. Maybe we can discuss this later. Buddhism actually was a gift from Kashmir. If how did Buddhism go out of India? It went through Kashmir. Outside of where Buddhism was born, let's say Kaling, Kashmir was the biggest sanctuary of Buddhism in the entire world. However, then Buddhism, they went out of Kashmir. There was people do not know this. I mean, this is very interesting, and we can wrap up with this. That there was always Buddhists and Kashmiris. They did not trust each other.
Okay.
Why Kashmiris did not trust Buddhists is because they believed that these Buddhists, they are spies. They are acting as spies. Now,
Okay.
you see, if you see it in a certain perspective, Buddhism was a religion that was trying to find its feet. It had to grow. So, therefore, when they were going out, it was only when people who were practicing Buddhist, when they went out of Kashmir, the invasions in Kashmir started with Rinchen, the first Buddhist monk, so-called the Buddhist, not monk, the first Buddhist prince, which was Rinchen, when he came as a refuge seeker into Kashmir, and then he took control of Kashmir. So that further cemented that belief that these are the spies, and they are sending in, because all the invaders who came to Kashmir, they
Mhm.
had specific intelligence when to attack, where to attack. That could
Right.
not have happened without
Right. That's
they
an
having them.
interesting angle to explore for a complete session, I'm sure.
Yes, yes, yes.
Great, Ashish ji, great. I mean, this is so fascinating. I have so many more questions. And I'm sure we can do a series on Kashmir with you. And what you told today, I'm sure it's not common knowledge, and people need to know this heritage of ours and heritage of Kashmir, which kind of gets lost in the present day uh,
And
conflicts that
maybe
is
I can
happening.
also I can leave two names. Sharang Dev and Sushruta. They are
Yes,
the names. They are the people who created music and created medicine. Do people know
right,
that they were
right.
from Kashmir?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, they were from Kashmir. And
Right.
we have maybe Abhinav Gupta. We can talk whenever we.
Yes,
Today we
Abhinav
know of
Gupta, we want to do one session on Abhinav Gupta itself one day.
I'll wrap up about Abhinav Gupta. Just a small little thing. Today's generation has grown up seeing Dumbledore, a fictional character in the Harry Potter series.
Right.
Abhinav Gupta, for today's generation to understand, Abhinav Gupta was a million times more powerful than anybody else,
Yes.
and he was called as Ajanma, somebody who was never born,
Never
born
born.
out of Bhagwati's yoni herself.
Ayonija.
And he was so powerful that it is written in scriptures, it is written in various history, and it is a part of my research, that he could control the five elements with just the gestures of his hands and his facial expressions. Whenever his facial expressions would change, that would bring the change of weather in Kashmir. That was the power of Abhinav Gupta.
You must come back and talk to us about Abhinav Gupta one day. And thank you so much, Ashish, for this
My pleasure.
absolutely wonderful, insightful talk. Thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
so much for having me. It was such a lovely talk that we had about Kashmir, which is something which is a part of my life. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us on Detours. You can also join us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Our handle is Inditales, INDITALES. See you soon.